Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we've got our hands on an A2 elementary English curriculum.
Right, the real beginner stuff.
Exactly. And our mission today, we're taking what looks like a completely mundane, almost boring lesson on how to buy groceries, and we're totally deconstructing it.
Which is so much fun to do.
It really is. We want to show you the hidden architecture of human communication because, learning how to navigate a supermarket in a foreign language isn't just about figuring out where they keep the milk.
Oh, definitely not.
It's about surviving absolute sensory chaos, decoding these unwritten social scripts, and unlocking the underlying mechanics of how a culture literally categorizes reality.
I mean, it's an incredibly high-stakes environment. Usually when we picture someone learning a language, we imagine this very safe, quiet space.
Yeah, like sitting at a desk.
Exactly. You're at a desk, maybe drinking some coffee, you've got your flashcards laid out, your grammar tables are perfectly highlighted, it's, orderly.
Super controlled.
Right. But the second you step through those automatic sliding doors of a supermarket in a foreign country, that sterile classroom just vanishes.
God.
You are hit with fluorescent lights, announcements blaring over the loudspeaker, and thousands of brightly colored packages, all competing for your attention.
It's sensory overload on an extreme scale. I mean, if you're joining us today, you're probably someone who loves to figure out how things work, and you likely want to avoid that feeling of information overload in your own life.
Which is entirely relatable.
Totally. Well, the source material we're looking at today proves that an everyday environment like a supermarket is actually an incredible testing ground for your brain.
It really pushes you to the limit.
It does. You're no longer just conjugating verbs on a piece of paper. You're trying to survive an ecosystem designed to overwhelm you.
Which is exactly why this curriculum doesn't start with complex grammar or long conversational dialogue.
Right. It doesn't just throw you into a chat with the cashier.
No, it starts with physical grounding. Before you can speak, you have to understand the space.
Okay, let's unpack this. The curriculum begins by laying out the foundational vocabulary of the physical supermarket.
Structural stuff.
Yeah. We're talking about words like trolley, basket, aisle, shelf, and the checkout. And then it breaks the store down into specific zones, right?
Like the different departments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fruits and vegetables, dairy, bread and bakery, meat and fish, frozen food, and drinks. Looking at this list of words, it feels exactly like downloading the coordinate grid for a video game map before you start playing.
I love that analogy. It's a highly accurate way to look at it.
Yeah.
You are basically establishing the X and Y axes of your physical environment.
Right.
You can't navigate a three-dimensional space through language if you don't have the structural markers.
Because without the word aisle, you can't understand horizontal movement through this massive warehouse you're standing in.
Exactly.
And without the word shelf, you can't process vertical placement. You're basically wandering in the dark.
Just totally lost.
Yeah. I mean, you might know the word for apple, but if you don't have the spatial vocabulary, you have no way to locate it or even ask a worker where it is.
What's fascinating here is the deliberate choice to teach containment vocabulary right alongside those spatial coordinates.
Containment vocabulary, like the baskets.
Yes, exactly. The lesson specifically highlights the basket, noting it as the small container you carry with your hand for just a few items, versus the trolley, which is the large metal carriage on wheels that you push.
Oh, I see.
Moving from flashcards to heavy metal objects anchors the vocabulary. It pulls the English language out of the abstract realm of theory, and it forces the learner to connect words to tangible physical actions.
It makes it real. And the source material does something really brilliant right at the start with that specific word. It teaches the learner trolley, but then immediately drops a footnote that in America it's called a cart.
Yeah, that footnote is crucial. It seems like a minor vocabulary note, but it's actually a vital warning label.
A warning label.
Yeah, it's an early exposure to the global, decentralized nature of the English language.
Oh, like the curriculum waving a red flag saying, hey, just a heads up, the rules of this game change depending on where you're standing on the planet.
Precisely. Because often when you study a language, you're taught a highly standardized, idealized version of it.
Right, textbook perfect.
Exactly. But English is not a monolith. By introducing regional variations, like trolley versus cart, at an elementary or A2 level, you prepare the learner for the messy reality of the real world.
You're teaching them to be flexible.
You're teaching cognitive flexibility. Just imagine the sheer panic of a learner who spends months memorizing trolley, travels to New York, asks for one, and is met with absolute blank stares.
Oh man, that would be terrifying.
That footnote prevents the map from failing them.
So you've downloaded the map. You've got your trolley or your cart. You understand the horizontal layout of the aisles and the vertical layout of the shelves.
You're grounded.
Right. But maps are populated by people. Once you understand the geography, you inevitably have to interact with the locals inside it.
Which naturally moves us from physical survival to social survival.
Definitely. So the source outlines a very specific set of must-know phrases for navigating social commerce.
The survival scripts.
Yeah. Things like, I need or I am looking for. They also teach, where can I find? And of course, how much does this cost?
Very practical.
And to wrap it up, they give you, can you help me please? And do you have? To put these into action, the curriculum provides an incredibly detailed role-play scenario.
Oh, I love this part.
It's so good. First, the customer needs milk. The worker tells them it's in aisle 4 in the dairy section, specifically on the left side.
Notice how that instruction layers perfectly onto the spatial grid we just talked about. Aisle 4, dairy section, left side.
It's super specific.
It's a precise coordinate that only works because the foundational map was downloaded first.
Then it gets even more descriptive. The customer asks for bread. The worker says it's in the bakery section at the back of the store, but adds this fantastic detail. They say, you will smell it.
I love that addition so much. It utilizes sensory cues to aid navigation in moments where the language processing might lag.
Like when your brain just freezes.
Exactly. If the phrase back of the store doesn't immediately translate in learner's stressed out brain, the instruction to just follow the smell of fresh bread bypasses the linguistic barrier entirely.
That is so smart.
It's a brilliant fallback mechanism.
Well, the scenario continues with fresh apples near the entrance in aisle 1. But then we hit the juice, and the complexity just spikes.
Oh, the juice math.
The juice math. The customer asks, how much does this orange juice cost? The worker explains that a standard bottle is £2.50. However, there's a bigger bottle on sale for £3, which represents a 20% discount.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. And the worker refers to it as a good deal and very cheap.
That specific interaction is remarkably dense for an A2 level. Suddenly, you aren't just finding a location. You are processing mathematics, comparative value, and specialized retail jargon like discount and on sale, all simultaneously.
Talk about cognitive load. I mean, imagine holding 2 bottles of juice, trying to remember your numbers in English, calculating a 20% discount in your head, all while someone is just staring at you waiting for a response.
It's incredibly stressful.
It really is.
Yeah.
But looking at these core phrases as a whole, I do have to push back a little bit on how they are structured.
Okay, how so?
Well, the curriculum teaches the learner to say, excuse me, can you help me, please? It's so incredibly polite, it almost feels rigid.
I see what you mean.
If you're listening to this, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I never say that when I go to the store. I just grab a worker and say, hey, man, where's the bread? Is this curriculum teaching them to be overly formal?
It's a very fair critique. Native speakers absolutely use shorthand. They skip the formalities because they have the luxury of fluency. But for a language learner, these highly polite formulaic phrases are serving a completely different purpose. They aren't just about good manners. They act as social armor.
Social armor. Okay, I like the sound of that. But how does being overly polite act as armor?
Think about the power dynamic happening in that aisle. You're in a foreign environment, your heart is probably beating a little fast, and you are stopping a store worker who is busy restocking shelves and has a job to do.
They're usually rushing around.
Exactly. By using a complete, highly polite, prepackaged phrase like, excuse me, can you help me please, you alter the dynamic. First, you drastically reduce your own cognitive load. You don't have to invent a sentence from scratch. You just deploy the script.
You just hit play on the mental tape recorder.
Exactly. And more importantly, that overt politeness masks your lack of fluency while simultaneously signaling deep respect for the native speaker's time.
Oh, wow.
It practically guarantees that you will receive a patient, helpful response. If you were to stumble through a casual or bread, it could easily come across as abrupt or even rude, simply because you lack the nuance to deliver casual shorthand warmly.
That makes so much sense.
The rigid politeness is a protective shield. It buys you patience.
That's a massive paradigm shift. You're using politeness to manipulate the social dynamic in your favor, ensuring the worker slows down and gives you the grace you need to process their answer.
It's survival tactics.
You're surviving the interaction. But surviving an interaction by hitting play on a mental tape recorder only gets you so far. Eventually, you're standing in front of the dairy case, and you realize you need to actually construct your own original sentences.
And that's where the real challenge begins.
And this is where learners hit a massive hidden wall.
The structural logic of the language.
Right. Which brings us to the grammatical engine of this entire lesson. The difference between countable and uncountable nouns. The hidden rules of much versus many.
Oh boy. This is notoriously one of the most frustrating concepts for language learners. It requires you to look at the physical world and categorize it in a very specific, often completely unintuitive way.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The rule in the source material seems incredibly simple on the surface. How much is used for things that cannot be counted, like milk or cheese? How many is used for things that can be counted, like apples or bags or needing exactly 12 eggs?
It sounds straightforward.
Right. How many apples do you want versus how much milk do you need?
On paper, it's a binary system.
But honestly, it's wildly confusing if you aren't a native speaker. Let's look at the word cheese. The curriculum explicitly labels cheese as uncountable, requiring how much.
Yeah.
But why? I can go to the store and I can clearly hold a single distinct block of cheddar cheese in my hand. I can count 3 blocks of cheddar in my basket right now.
You're right, you can physically count them.
It feels exactly like trying to explain the physics of water versus ice cubes. Water is uncountable, you ask how much water. But ice cubes are countable, you asked how many ice cubes. Yet they are the exact same substance. How is a learner supposed to intuitively grasp this?
It's a fantastic analogy, and it perfectly illustrates why direct translation from a native language to English almost always fails here.
Because the physics don't line up.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, linguistic countability isn't actually about literal objective physics. It's not about whether you can physically point to a thing in your hand and assign a number to it. It's about how a culture historically conceptualizes a substance versus a bounded unit.
Substance versus bounded unit. Okay, walk me through how a native speaker's brain actually processes that.
Think about the historical nature of the items. Apples grow as distinct individual units on a branch. You pluck one, you pluck two. They naturally have boundaries provided by nature.
So they are naturally countable.
Right. Therefore, they are countable. Milk, on the other hand, is a continuous liquid substance. Historically, it pools together. You don't naturally have a milk. You have a volume of a substance.
Right, you need a glass or a bottle or something to give the liquid a boundary.
And notice what happens when you do, that the container becomes the countable unit. How many glasses of milk? But the substance itself, the milk, remains uncountable.
That is fascinating.
Now, apply that historical lens to your cheese example. Yes, modern supermarkets slice and wrap cheese in neat, discrete plastic blocks. But linguistically, cheese is conceptualized as a continuous mass.
Because of how it used to be made.
Yes. Historically, it's produced in massive wheels or giant vats. You cut a portion off the mass. The English language retains that historical worldview of the substance, completely ignoring the modern plastic packaging.
Wow. So when you're standing in aisle 4, trying to decide between much and many, you aren't just trying to remember a grammar rule from a textbook. You are actively adopting the historical and cultural worldview embedded in the English language.
You are.
You're retraining your brain to look at physical matter and instantly calculate, is this a continuous mass or is this an individual object?
That's exactly the leap that has to happen. Grasping this distinction is a profound moment in language acquisition. It's the exact moment a learner stops parroting those survival phrases and starts truly understanding the internal structural logic of English.
It's like unlocking the matrix.
It really is. Once you understand the why behind countable and uncountable nouns, you can confidently apply it to thousands of other words you've never even encountered before.
You graduate from a tourist to an architect of the language. So let's look at where our learner is at now. You've navigated the physical space, you know your aisles from your shelf.
You're doing great.
You've successfully deployed your social armor to get help from the staff. You've mastered the historical physics of your groceries. You've got your milk, your apples, your bread. You're feeling confident. You head to the exit.
But you aren't out yet.
Nope. You still have to face the final, most unpredictable stage of the supermarket journey.
The checkout lane. The absolute loss of control.
The final boss. The curriculum lays out these rapid-fire checkout interactions, and it's a completely different vibe from the rest of the store.
It's a totally different dynamic.
The cashier is going to ask predictable, but potentially very confusing questions. Did you find everything okay? Your total is, well, whatever the amount is. And the one that always derails people, do you have a loyalty card?
Oh, that's the worst one.
The lesson provides prescribed answers for the learner. Things like, yes, thank you, or I couldn't find the blank, or no, I don't have a card.
We really have to talk about why the checkout is so incredibly stressful. In the aisles, the learner has all the agency.
They control the pace.
Exactly. They decide when to initiate the conversation. They approach the worker. They ask the specific question they've been practicing in their head. But at the checkout, that agency is totally stripped away.
The cashier is driving the car.
They are. And their speed, their vocabulary, and their accent are entirely out of the learner's control. Add to that the physical environment. There's a conveyor belt moving your items, a machine beeping loudly, and most anxiety-inducing of all, a line of people standing behind you waiting for you to finish.
The pressure cooker.
The environmental pressure spikes dramatically.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Think about the cognitive load we've discussed. You've spent all your mental energy preparing to talk about the physical location of dairy products and calculating 20% discounts on juice.
They're exhausted.
You are operating at maximum capacity just to hold all of that in your working memory. And suddenly, over the beeping of the register, the cashier hits you with, do you have a loyalty card?
It's a linguistic ambush.
It really is. Loyalty card is a completely abstract concept. It has absolutely nothing to do with the food you are buying.
Nothing at all.
It requires a completely different subset of vocabulary. And depending on where the learner is from, it might be a completely foreign cultural concept. In some countries, cashiers don't speak to you at all, let alone ask you to join a corporate points program.
And because the cashier asks this question hundreds of times a day, they are likely slurring the words together at lightning speed. They're running on their own autopilot script.
Yeah, they're not enunciating.
Exactly. This is the exact moment where the risk of the learner's brain just freezing up is at its absolute highest. This is why those pre-programmed escape hatches the curriculum provides are vital.
You need a quick out.
You don't need to understand the intricacies of the store's reward program. You just need to instantly deploy, no, I don't have a card, so you can survive the interaction and get out the door.
Which perfectly sets up the ultimate practice tip provided at the very end of the source material. It's a piece of advice that seems so simple, but is actually incredibly deep.
I love this tip.
The curriculum suggests that the next time you go shopping, even if you are in your own country, speaking your native language, you should play a mental game. As you walk through the store, you force yourself to mentally name every single item you see in English. Apple, milk, bread, cheese, juice.
It's a brilliant pedagogical tool. It takes everything we've talked about and operationalizes it.
I was thinking about why this specific exercise works so much better than just staring at flashcards at your desk. I imagine that this mental game works because you're forcing your brain to cut out the middleman.
What do you mean by that?
Like, if your native language is Spanish, you're no longer translating the word manzana into apple. You're looking at a physical, red, shiny object in the real world and attaching the English word apple directly to it.
That's a great way to articulate it. You are forging entirely new, direct neural pathways. When you look at a flashcard with a drawing of an apple, the context is entirely provided for you.
Right, the prompt is just sitting there.
The prompt is right there on the paper. But when you are walking down an actual supermarket aisle and you force your brain to translate the chaotic physical world around you via an internal monologue, you're doing the heavy lifting of spontaneous recall.
You're building the linguistic connections in real time under the subtle pressure of a real environment.
Yes, and you're attaching the English vocabulary to the actual sensory experience of the object. The weight of the trolley, the chill of the dairy aisle, the bright colors on the shelf.
The smell of the bread.
Exactly. By practicing this internal monologue, you train your brain to retrieve the vocabulary without an external prompt. So when you finally find yourself in that foreign supermarket for real, the words don't feel like raw data you have to painfully extract from a memory bank.
They feel natural.
They feel like the intuitive labels for the physical world around you. You've effectively turned a mundane chore into a high-functioning mental gymnasium.
You take the chaos of the supermarket and you turn it into your own personal training ground. It's amazing how much depth there is in an activity most of us do while staring at our phones.
We really take it for granted.
To summarize the journey we've been on today, we started by looking at a supposedly simple grocery run, but we uncovered a highly structured matrix. We mapped out the spatial awareness required just to locate a shelf.
We did.
We examined the formal etiquette and the social armor needed to ask a simple question and buy yourself patience. We dug into the complex historical worldview hidden inside a block of cheese. And we survived the high-pressure, rapid-fire ambush of the checkout lane.
It truly reframes what it means to be fluent in a language. Fluency isn't just knowing a list of words. It's knowing how to deploy those words in three-dimensional space, under environmental pressure, while simultaneously navigating unwritten cultural contracts.
It makes you respect the sheer willpower of anyone learning a second language so much more, which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder.
Oh, this is a good one.
The next time you walk through those automatic sliding doors into a supermarket, even if you are just running down the street in your own native language, take a moment to notice the invisible linguistic scripts you are running on absolute autopilot.
Pay attention to the subtle social negotiations you make when you squeeze past someone in an aisle. Notice the spatial reasoning you use to navigate the zones and the structural logic you apply without a second thought when you ask a question.
It's all happening subconsciously.
It is. What complex, entirely unwritten rules of your own culture are you utilizing just to buy a carton of milk and a loaf of bread? If you had to break down your own autopilot and explain it to a beginner, where would you even start?
It makes you realize that every mundane interaction you have is actually a small miracle of human communication. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We unpacked a lot today, and hopefully you are walking away with a brand new perspective on the invisible architecture all around us.
Keep questioning the things that feel simple, because there is always an entire world operating beneath the surface.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring those linguistic battlefields. Catch you on the next deep dive.